guys, we are now in the 2020 Ford Power Stroke. This F-250 has the Tremor package on it. It is the baddest Super Duty money can buy right now. It is freaking nice, Nick. I mean, one thing I will always say about Fords, and it is just the stupidest but most important thing to me, is all the elbow room I have right by the window.
You cannot comfortably hang your arm out the window unless your upper arm is like 1.5 feet long. I mean, you got to be a real ogre to hang your arm out the window one of these things. Yeah, you got a lot of room in here, man. This is a big boy's truck.
This really is the center, the dash, everywhere we touch. Again, it's all the nicest stuff. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody to complain about the interior of this truck. Right away, I will tell you, we are in a mild acceleration here. I think that's noisier than the Cummins.
Yeah, I'll probably give you that. There's a lot of air sound. There's a lot of engine sound. It's got a little extra rattle to it compared to the Duramax, which I didn't expect.
Yeah. By far, I think by far, this is still a very quiet truck. If you've been driving older trucks your whole life, this will still be the quietest thing you've ever rode in. But the three of them right next to each other, noticeably, I'd say this one has more noise. Again, it's not similar to an exhaust note.
No, not in any way. It's engine noise, it's ticking, it's kind of like, metallic-y.
Yeah.
Timing noise, I'd call it, or fuel pressure noise. But
Sure.
Yeah, it's got a little extra noise. And the Tremor package has those Duratrack tires, which you can also hear.
There you go. Yeah, the tires. Now, the Tremor package gives it a few other things. I'm not a wild, trim level, know-it-all 8208 guy, but I do know that it gives you a little bit stiffer suspension, a few other features along those lines. We were just going through some of the factory modes. Did you come across a rock crawling mode in this?
Got a rock crawling mode, so I got tow haul, econo, slippery conditions, rock crawl, whereas the other trucks have normal and tow haul.
Yeah.
The turbo brake on this truck also has the automatic option versus the full-on, similar to the Cummins. I would say it's not anywhere near as effective as the Cummins.
Right.
Probably about like the GM, maybe a little better than the GM, but
okay.
Neither of these come anywhere close to the Cummins as far as slowing the truck down.
Because the GM, I think it's safe to say you were legitimately disappointed that it didn't brake harder.
I was disappointed.
Does it hurt you to say that about a GM?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I was disappointed.
Now, the braking on this truck will rely on you for the feedback. I'll say the acceleration and the smoothness feeling.
This is a smooth truck taking off. It's smoother than both the other trucks.
Really, just it feels. I don't know that effortless is the right word, but it feels like you are doing what you're supposed to be doing with the truck. It feels like this is where it's in its happy spot. This is where the truck wants to live. It's just in that easy, smooth takeoff where I don't feel the trans defueling real hard between shifts. I really don't even notice it. It feels like it's holding gear while we're taking off,
really happy.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we get up, you can feel it. I mean, you shift 1-2, it locks the converter clutch up, and it just shifts, not overly firm, but there's very little pause between shifts. Very clean. I mean, we're heavy. We've said that before. We're 30,000 pounds here, and we've got a 550 rear wheel horse tune on the truck. It's not anything that is easy on equipment, I'll tell you that. And yeah, the truck is. I wouldn't say you don't know the load is back there, but it feels very comfortable with this weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Ride quality as far as bouncing around or that kind of feel in the cab with this one, again, I think plush would be the right word. This feels very comfortable. The dually. So the dually, now we've had two trucks now, single rear wheels compared to the dually. Both of our trucks have more aggressive treads on them, so they're not the factory.
Sure. Yeah.
Quite those smooth ride from the factory tires.
Yeah.
What do you think? Can you feel the rear end moving around on this with that load?
The truck doesn't feel as planted as the dually.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. I can feel. I think these tires have a little more side-to-side movement just in the tread as well, but it doesn't feel bad. All the tires are set at the same pressure. So the dually was at 75 or 80. These are at 80. The L5P was at 80. So it's not like we're trying to be as fair as we can here. And I thought I would really be annoyed with the Tremor package tire. I like the tire, don't get me wrong, it looks tough.
It does.
But for doing this, I do not think it's an ideal tire. And I thought I would feel that really early on, and it's not bad.
I was honestly worried about the road noise with them. Because usually when we get into those real aggressive, big gaps to clear out the mud, that's where you can hear it on the road.
Right.
Shift quality. So we went through a lot of the shift quality kind of challenges and frustrations that we have with the L5P, and we talked about how even though we're not tuning the ACID either, shift quality is really there. It really feels nice.
Right.
There's some room for improvement. This is the one truck that we have a tuned transmission in.
Yeah.
Also is a 10-speed.
Also is a 10-speed.
So kind of throwing all of the variables out there between these three trucks. What do you think about this one? Because I'll say, so far, like we mentioned on takeoff, up and down gears, you don't think about it.
This transmission wins.
Right?
Period.
Like,
Yeah.
It's just...
And it may change if we can tune the Allison, but as of right now, not even a comparison.
But
This is
yeah,
the trans.
here we are, and this is one spot I think a lot of guys, and so often I know I personally talk about takeoff and transmission shifting, transient throttle response and transmission shifting. But do you know the one place I get the most complaints from customers is downshifting?
Okay.
I'm coming up to a stop sign, I'm hard on the brakes like we just were, and the thing just, it feels like it's clunking. Guys say, oh, it feels like it's bucking Bronco when it's downshifted, it's slamming in. This, it downshifted just fine.
No, there was no hiccups, no nothing. I mean, I tell you what, it's really nice too when you can feel that trans lock up and stay locked as it completes the shifts. You know, there's a fine line between putting the power down at this level, at this weight, and maintaining shift quality, and I'm really impressed with the way this trans is doing it.
Now, also, this is our highest peak power truck in the fleet. So the other ones we come in, the Cummins we come in, we start off at 400 with the high output. We tune those up to about 480 on your tow tunes. The L5P we come in, refresh my memory here, Nick, mid fours.
On the tow tune?
On the L5P stock.
On the L5P stock, we're about 405, 407.
There we go. And then with the tow tune, I'm sorry, we're at 480.
Yeah, with the tow tune, we're about 480. Now, remember, we have the sport tune in all these trucks. So
Right.
the L5P was up around 550. This truck, similarly, at that power level. The Ram was about 500 horsepower. So, you know, the Ram, you know, I noticed the difference in power. I can tell right away these trucks, as soon as they get up in that 2,000 RPM plus range, these trucks shine. The Ram does feel like it has more torque. It feels much more comfortable at like 1600 RPM, just kind of lugging, pulling. The turbocharger's right there. And that makes sense because the Ram is out of turbocharger sooner. It has a smaller turbocharger as far as the exhaust side goes and just the geometry. And, you know, that helps it spool up quick. That helps it lug, but it also hinders it up top.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, turbochargers, I think that's an interesting one to bring up here because my understanding is the turbocharger in this and the L5P extremely similar.
Very similar. Very similar. Yeah, they both use that Borg-Warner variable geometry turbocharger with the newer vane style. We're working on a stealth upgrade for that turbocharger with the upgraded nozzle ring and bigger turbine assembly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've seen that change from Garrett to Borg-Warner variable geometry technology has made these trucks more able to lug, and you've seen that in the response, you know, just in the single gear, you know, ability to hold one gear and be pulled down in the rev range. And we've also seen it in the full throttle shift points. The factory seems to use lower full throttle shift points on these newer trucks, presumably because there's no need to run them out that high because they've shifted the power curve lower in the rev range, which is what customers want.
Okay. Now that power delivery and that transient throttle response is something we often talk about. And I know it's something we talked about in the other trucks. So I have a little bit higher peak power here. I have a quick spooling, smaller turbocharger than maybe in some of the older models and things of that nature. What does that translate to when I'm on the road? So if we do need to get up and move, I take it this truck is just immediate responsive like the L5P was, where I know that even though the smallest turbocharger of the three, the Cummins didn't seem to respond quite as snappy.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as peppy as the other two.
You're right. Yeah, the L5P and the Power Stroke engine-wise are very, very similar in power delivery. You could easily mistake the two if you masked their sound. The 6.7 Power Stroke seems like it has a little more noise to it, not in a bad way, but just a little bit more noise. Otherwise, power delivery between these two is, I mean,
it'd be hard pressed to know the difference.
Yes,
like if you really didn't see any badges.
Right, the difference is in the trans.
Gotcha. Okay. man, the trans and the power and the peak, this one really starts to stand out. But I know everybody I talk to who's driven all three loves the Cummins. Like it's hard to get around that.
You've only been talking to Chris Emke, Paul.
Damn you, podcast. So, but it is. I think there's a lot of people out there who have taken a look at all three, and man, you sit in that Cummins, it's nice. What makes this truck stand out? I know the trans is really good on it. I think that's puts it a whole head above the rest of the pack.
The more I drive all three of these trucks, the more I see the balance in the Ford. I feel like the Ford has a great balance between quality interior, nice features, usability features, and the power delivery, which I'm of course a power guy. So I appreciate a great engine and trans. I mean, it doesn't shine in the interior like the Ram does, and it doesn't have IFS like the Chevy, but otherwise, I mean, it's a really well-balanced truck, and it's a strong truck, and there's a lot of buyers out there who that makes sense for.
Yeah, and I think we want this video to be a lot about stepping away from the brand loyalty. Clearly you are of DuramaxTuner.com.
Yeah, I mean, I started out a GM guy, but I've got a lot of hours on all these platforms, and I think it's important that if you're going to be kind of honest with yourself in your new vehicle purchase and you're a performance enthusiast, like, you're going to spend a lot of money here. Drive these things, do your research. You might find yourself moving from a Dodge to a Ford, or from a GM to a Dodge, or you know what I mean? It's important to try all the manufacturer's options. I think too many guys get wrapped up in their ego, and their persona is, I'm a Ram guy, or I'm a Ford guy, I'm never buying anything else. Well,
try it. They have changed.
Try it.
That's one of the big things I have to kind of yell at everybody is like, hey, listen, I also agree the 12 valve was an amazing engine and an amazing truck, but if that's what you're basing your love affair with Cummins after, all of them are totally different.
There's a lot more technology out there.
We're even near the same vehicle it was, 20 years ago, much less even 10 years ago.
Every 4 years, every 3 years, these manufacturers spend a lot of money on R&D, they spend a lot of money in engineering, and they bring out their best and brightest. These are their flagship vehicles.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of really hardworking people out there who are trying to make the best vehicles out there, and I think, we as performance enthusiasts owe it to the market to put them through their paces. Run them, beat them.
That's right. Hey, we're coming up to our hill here, so this is going to be one of the spots that we really see how this truck shines when it's under a load, when it's under a little bit of stress. Now, I know on the Ram, we pretty much didn't notice anything because it just smoothly pulled us up the hill with no hiccups. With the GM, it definitely had plenty of power, but the trans flared out, I think, is probably the right way to phrase it.
I think you're overstating it a little bit, Paul, but yeah, the Ram dropped one gear at the top of the hill. We went from 5th to 4th. The GM dropped 2 gears, one right at the top of the hill, and I would expect this one probably to drop a gear or 2, similar to the Duramax.
So take a look here as we crest the first peak of the hill.
So there's your 1 gear on the first hill.
Yep.
And these are baby hills, it's Illinois, what do you expect? But it's better than nothing.
There you go. Just enough to test it, see if it's working.
So I'm doing my best to maintain speed, but yeah, I got to drop 1. I'm able to maintain that 55 with just 1 gear drop, and I might have been pushing the GM a little differently for that last gear drop on the crest of the hill, but I would say, pretty uneventful. I would say the gear drops were smoother in this truck, and we're going to keep hitting on that trans piece because it makes
the standout part,
it makes
right?
a difference.
Yeah, because I know earlier we discussed fuel systems are pretty similar, turbos are pretty similar, displacement's real close, 2 V8s looking side by side with each other. This and the L5P right on top of each other, right? Power, performance, even price points as you're looking up for new ones. They're going to cost you a pretty similar amount to invest into either one of them. So it does come down to some of those features we talked about earlier. What's going to stand out to you, what's going to be the little thing that shines that really makes you love the truck. One of the things I will say in this is the versatility. So when you unhook and you're driving around unloaded, I think the Ford is probably my favorite of the three to drive on the road with no trailer behind.
Yeah, you can squall the tires in the Ford. It clicks the shifts off really well. It's a hot rod truck, tuned. I mean, and we're talking 2020 tuned. Obviously, we don't have products out for 2020 Ford tuning, so it's kind of a moot point right now. They will be out in the near future, I assume. But it's just no good flash tool. We have to take the ECM out of the truck right now. But that's not stopping us from doing our development, not stopping us from telling you what to expect when tuning does come out for these.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say unloaded, this truck is really fun to drive. And the GM's a lot of fun to drive too. I would say the Dodge is just, it feels more of a workhorse, or the Ram feels like more of a workhorse truck when you compare it against these two.
Yeah, and I think that's my thing, is that because I'm on the other side of this equation where I drive unloaded 99.9% of the time. It's so rare I get behind a truck while I'm towing.
Yeah.
I care about how it drives, right when there's nothing hooked up to it. I care about going to have some fun. I want to hit the track every once in a great while. No, I'm not a track rat. I'm not there every Saturday with my, in my 2020 Tremor. But I do want to be able to do it once in a while.
Sure.
And I think this truck lends itself very well to that versatility of being able to be your workhorse and still going and having fun on the weekends once in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, the track is one thing, but I mean, this thing's got a cool suspension package on it. It's got front lockers. I mean, you could take this thing off-road and run it, throw dirt around, go in the sand, whatever you want to do, and it's going to have a snappy, performance-oriented attitude when it's unloaded. So absolutely. I like that. And it really hasn't done anything that I'm running the big tune in it, and it hasn't done anything that I don't like at this 30,000 pound weight rating.
It is just as smooth as can be. And yeah, Nick, myself as well, came in loving Duramaxes, loving GM. Ever since we've started kind of tuning and messing with even the earlier generations of the 6.7 and looking at like the 14s with that twin scroll, and then moving into the upgraded turbochargers as they go forward in years. There's something that I'll admit it, man, I've fallen in love with these trucks. They're a blast to drive. I think they also look great. I think that's one thing we've probably skipped because there is so much just opinion involved with how these trucks look. But I know when that 2020 first showed up at the lot, we had some very different opinions about how it looked.
Sure.
Some different opinions about who loved and hated the grille.
Yeah.
With these, I don't think the Ford has had that major facelift, at least very recently.
No, it looks very similar to the 17. There's a little bit of change for 2020. Still the aluminum body, the lighter setup there.
Sure.
But yeah, overall, I mean, I think they're probably due for a facelift or due for an interior update in the not so distant future, especially as they try and compete with Ram, both GM and Ford.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with there.
We were just talking about some of the other kind of little features as we were getting loaded up here today. And one of the things you had mentioned was the bumper.
It's the little stuff, man.
Little stuff, but it matters.
God, I love that. So the Ram's got a camera that points right at the gooseball. GM does too. This truck, I put it in reverse, and I can't for the life of me find a freaking camera that points at the gooseball. Maybe it's not part of the Tremor package. I don't know, but that's just like...
How not?
Just annoying, right? little stuff. And call me a bitch, call me whatever you want, but like not having the little steps in the bumper so I can jump up and throw the chains on. It's just, all that little stuff kind of adds up, and there's a couple of those little features here and there that are just helpful.
Honestly, again, you're most guys are going to spend, 5 to 8 years with their truck. So all those little things, the 150,000 times you do have to get in and out of the bed of your truck to grab one thing.
Right.
We all do it.
Yep.
It matters, man. Now, the little handle and fold-out tailgate step they have in the Ford, I've never been a fan of. I think they're quite ridiculous that anybody would take the time to fold one of those down and use them.
Sure.
But they're there, so they do have that.
Maybe when my knees get worse, I'll use that. I've already dropped my tailgate on the 2020 Denali on the ball, so I'm one of those guys.
Happens.
It happens.
Right?
And if you haven't done it yet with your truck,
you will.
You probably will.
We are working our way down here to where we're going to do our 0 to 60 run with the trailer on in this truck. Give you guys those comparisons between the three. Nick, what are you expecting out of this one? We're right in the middle. I
think this will be the quickest one, to be honest. I don't think it's going to wax the L5P, but I think it's going to be a little bit quicker than the L5P.
Okay, gotcha. I have to say, based on just how it's felt to drive the thing, you're right. I think it's clearly going to be the leader ahead. Again, I don't know how much that matters to everybody who's towing, but man, if you do got to get up and get moving, knowing that you can do it, I think, is the important part.
Yeah, this truck is no fuss. Use whatever throttle you want. This truck has no fuss whatsoever, and in my experience driving it here, and that's, you know.
I will say, as we talked about the ride quality, this is the stiffest of the three. It's just unquestionable, because we've run down this road where we're at right now with two other trucks, the exact same load.
Yeah.
And we did not have nearly the amount of vibration in the seat.
It's not as plush as the L5P. It might be close to the Ram with the dually and the heavy springs and stuff, but this Tremor package is definitely tougher than the L5P.
Yeah.
It's also the highest ride height in the back, I'll tell you that, because we had to crank the trailer higher than the other two to get, so the Ram was the lowest, the L5P was second, and the Ford had the highest rear end. So if you're switching between three trucks, which you probably aren't doing, but worth noting.
Yeah, it is interesting, because when you look at the three of them parked next to each other, I don't think most people would call out a ride height difference.
No.
And I don't think you would notice it, but I was thinking the same thing as we were cranking that trailer up and down. I'm like, there's an inch or two difference here at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's noticeable. I don't know how much it'll impact the trailer you're hauling, you know, if it'll actually make a difference for you, but I suppose somebody who's really testing the limits will find that advantageous.
Yeah. I will say the exhaust braking is coming in on the Ford, you know, just to give my final review on the exhaust brake. It is not the Ram exhaust brake, not even close, but it's better than the L5P.
All right, and we are in our spot. We are just going to get our draggy set up. We're going to do one last 0 to 60 run for you guys. All right, guys, we got our 0 to 60. Nick, it's on you. Seconds in the 8th mile. Ooh, 22.08 for our 0 to 60, guys.
Basically the same as the L5P.
Yeah, interesting. And I think the L5P, to be honest with you, felt better shifting during that same 0 to 60 run, which I'm extremely surprised by.
Yeah, I might have hiccuped a little bit on the 1-2 shift. I just didn't want to hammer it super hard in first gear. Might call that me, but third and up were all clean shifts.
Yeah.
And the truck felt pretty good. But yeah, I would say it felt similar to the L5P.
It was similar, yeah. Okay, so guys, I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what these trucks at least feel like on the road to us, or our opinion of them. We're gonna head back to the shop, do a little bit of recap, put some numbers together, and kind of talk about all of them together. Now that we've driven all three of these trucks, Nick and I are going to get together and talk about all the things we learned. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a video.